everybody, welcome back to the second episode of Beer with Brandon. I'm your host, Mr. Brandon Bond, and I'm proud to announce my first sponsor for the Beer with Brandon show, Trésors de Paris in the beautiful downtown Paris, 125 Lamar Avenue. Thank you so much for sponsoring, and check out this beer. Awesome, pairs well with the Beer with Brandon show. So today's episode, I'd like to discuss getting represented and why that's important. I have my guest with me that needs no introduction, Mr. Chad Stevens. He is a real estate agent. He is a broker associate, an appraiser. I brought Chad along because he's a professional as well. Been in the real estate game for nearly 30 years.
Yep.
Excellent. He's going to help explain why getting represented is so important. So, welcome, Chad. What do you think about this?
I think it's great. It gives us an opportunity to kind of give some buyer tips here.
Don't mean to interrupt you, but Beer with Brandon has to be paired with the beer. So, before we get into it, let's grab a beer and take care of the most important thing, the beer. Cheers. And also, I will mention October is beer's favorite month. So cheers to Oktoberfest.
Cheers.
All right. Ooh, that is good. Okay, so getting represented. Why is getting represented important?
Well, you have someone actually representing you in the transaction, which is very important because the seller has an agent that represents them. And so it's very important that a buyer has buyer representation and not just simply someone checking a box and filling out the contract for the buyer. I equate buyer representation to having a good attorney in a lawsuit, for example.
Okay.
If you're in a lawsuit, you don't want the defense attorney also being your prosecuting attorney as well.
Seemed like a conflict of interest, maybe.
Conflict of interest, perhaps, but it's good for the listing agent, but not necessarily for the buyer.
So it reminds me of a story. I have a friend who bought some real estate prior to me becoming a realtor, of course, and the same thing happened to him. So he called the person on the sign, said, "Hey, I want to buy this property." They sold it to him. However, he didn't find out until after he bought the property that he could not build a home on that property. What went wrong?
Due diligence. I mean, you need some direction, especially with first-time home buyers. They don't know what to do, and that's why you get a buyer's rep agreement with the agent. And with that buyer's rep agreement, that's their fiduciary responsibility to represent only the buyer and the buyer's interest and put the buyer's interest above everybody's interest, including the agent. I've had clients in the past that said, "Chad, why do you work so hard to get a better price for us? Because that means less money for you." And it's like, well, I'm working for you. I'm trying to get you the best price under the best terms.
Sure.
And some people are reluctant when you put that representation agreement in front of them, but after they do their research, they call me up and say, "Sign me up," where I sign.
People are a little nervous about signing anything these days.
Exactly, especially on the first or second showing.
Sure. But one thing that is very important to know as a buyer when we're dealing with finances, financial, who pays who.
Yep. Well, see, that's the sweet thing about buyer's representation is if the property is listed with the MLS system, that the seller is going to pay me to represent the buyer or the buyer's agent. So that's what's so sweet about it.
That is such good information. We need to repeat it. The seller pays each agent, the listing agent and the buyer's agent.
That's correct. So not only are you representing the buyer, but the seller is paying you to do that, which is a pretty sweet deal.
Absolutely. I think so. Well, cool. So just to kind of recap, buyers do require a buyer's rep agreement that protects our interests, right?
The agent's interest and the buyer's interest. So you have an agreement that's going to outline what the buyer is responsible for doing, as well as the broker. And again, that broker or that agent, listing agent, is going to have to put the buyer's interest above everybody's, including the agents. So it's a no-lose situation.
Awesome. It's extremely important to call a real estate agent like us, for example. Chad, what's your number?
903-905-1640.
Who do you work for?
Keller Williams.
Yes, Keller Williams in the house. Awesome. And as always, Mr. Brandon Bond here. You can always reach me at 903-609-9178. That's about all the time we have, but doesn't mean we have to stop drinking. Anyways, I appreciate you watching. Like, share, comment. If you have more questions, you want more information, please reach out to either one of us. We'd be more than happy to help you. Other than that, thanks for stopping by. Stay tuned for next time, and y'all have a good evening.